Welcome back to another episode here on the Heart and Hustle podcast. Today's guest, she started by knocking on doors, chasing grants, and now she's helping rebuild futures across generations in Camden. Megan, let's get straight into it. Was there a moment, maybe on a sidewalk, staffing meeting, when you realized this work was actually personal and not so much professional anymore?
Good question. I think it happened way before I ever stepped into an office or a boardroom or a building where, important people did important things. At least it's what you think that happens inside a building. It really happened when I was young. I was kind of raised on the idea that whatever you have, you'll make it enough and you give it whatever you have to someone else. There are people who are worse off than you, even when you think on your worst day it couldn't get um, any more terrible or any much more of a struggle. So very steeped in community service since I was young. How I met some of the most important people in my life through that. And it just kind of grew to know that, social justice is something that was important to me. It's kind of in my bones. So here we are, 20 some odd years later, still doing the work, doing it in some of the toughest places that no one would ever step foot in, but are some of the brightest spots in the world once you get to know them.
I always ask this question, Megan. Anytime someone tells me they've done something for such a long time, is it out of comfortability or out of happiness?
Both. I think, sometimes comfortability does breed happiness because you know that you're where you're supposed to be. Sometimes there is uncomfortability to it. The certain current landscape can make things uncomfortable in the work that our team does. But I think when you know your home and when work becomes your home as well, because you're just so comfortable in it, the people that you're surrounded with and by are really, you know, your spirit animals. They kind of feed
Yeah.
your soul as well in the life and the work. So, and being able to bring that home and kind of reseed that in my kids
Mhm.
and kind of bring them up in a way that I was, although they got a different life than I did, for sure, in many aspects. But I think, making sure that they know um, to look out for their neighbor, look out for their friends, look
Right.
out for them, put themselves, last when you need to, and first when you can. But I really think that it's important for them to have that sense of, others than self is really important.
I love it. The reason I ask that question is because a lot of people from the for-profit space will always tell me comfortability, right? But you're both, so that is good, comfortable and happy. Because I actually just spoke to someone recently and I asked that same question: Are you comfortable or happy? And he just kind of laughs and he says, "Man, I'm actually comfortable, right?"
Mhm.
Didn't realize I'm not so much happy, but I'm comfortable. But I'm happy that you're both. There is a little bit of comfortability, as you mentioned. It could get really uncomfortable in the line of
Mhm.
work that we actually do as nonprofit leaders. One thing you've also mentioned that I'm totally agreeing on, and I say it to my board all the time, is you don't just sell stories to raise dollars. You actually tell them to raise dignity. Where did that storytelling philosophy actually come from?
Well, I have always loved writing. I've loved the idea and the methodology of communicating. I've kind of learned how to communicate not only to different audiences, but also authentically is something that
Hmm.
I've learned along the way.
Hmm.
There's telling a story and then there's telling the truth. And sometimes those things are not simpatico, let's say. But I think throughout, college and going to Temple University, shout out to the Owls, for, journalism, public relations, advertising, and then communication management, you manage a message, um, but you need to communicate authentically. And I think telling a story is a way to make an issue that can be really tough for people to understand, relatable, to see themselves or somebody that they know in that situation to engender support or help or understanding. Leaving with a check as a major gifts officer once upon a time in my career was a win for the organization. but I wanted to make sure that anyone who I was trying to communicate about what I do, what my team does, what it means to be on the front lines of social and human services, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and in a completely different world, was really important, because that's what they're going to remember when they talk to their friends about what they support, when they talk to their friends about, I had this really good lunch because I learned something about an organization that I've been given to for years, or I hadn't thought about giving to, or I wanted to give them more after I really understood what it is they do and how far, my investment in their work will go. So that really is the word of mouth, I think, that happens more than, the tax deductions, once a year or so. And though tax deductions are important, I get it. But really feeling good about what was behind that, and the purpose behind that is important. So I also had, colleagues come to me and say, people aren't success stories, right? Like, just because you help them, it doesn't mean that down the road they're, they might hit another challenge or another bump in their journey. So let's make sure we're not exploitative when we're talking about how we're helping people. Let them tell that story. And our role is to say, what we've done is understand the tools that we can become experts at in service delivery, so that that person has the tools. It's a little, teaching people to fish, right? Let them tell their own story, but let them have the tools that we were able to provide them, so that they have that sustainable strength and stability.
I love it. I do think I'm actually in a space now where we just handed out some scholarships to high school through the foundation, and I was obviously there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this foundation, unfortunately. But one of the biggest things I said is we're writing letters. Like, some of the students were getting letters, and with those letters, we're sending back out to the donors. But I think we're in a place now. I said next year we should actually challenge those young, because they do it already. Challenge them to make videos. How cool would it be, say, hey, Megan, thank you so much for the scholarship. I am now going, like, it makes you feel so good. Like, oh my God, like, look at this student. They're so excited that, they got whatever it was, $500, $1,000, and they're off to school, right? Because it allows people to see where their money's going. It kind of that return of investment, in a sense. But one thing that you kind of mentioned is, like, the lunches on talking to people on what you do as an organization. Are you putting these on? Like, are you going to networking events? Like, because that's really what we need to do, right? We got to get the word out. We got to stay in people's minds. What are you doing to stay in people's minds nowadays?
Sure. So my role has evolved from that a little bit, but I think it's the telling at any level you can, right? So there's you have social media, you have your annual appeal letters. So it depends on what kind of funding you're going for, what kind of relationships you're trying to make. But I think that's the piece of it, right? You have to have trust. You have to have some level of relationship. You have to have some level of understanding of what's of interest, right? What's going to make that person empathetic to an issue, or to a concern, or to an opportunity to invest in making a community better, making an individual better. I think one of the ideas I had a couple years ago, unfortunately during COVID, was supposed to be our organization's 100th anniversary. So we were in the throes of planning a gala, as agencies tend to do, to celebrate those sorts of milestones. So within that, I was chatting with our PR and development team about, a campaign motto or a tagline, and it just it starts with one. It starts with one person. It starts with one phone call. It starts with one crisis. It starts with one question. Why do I feel sad? It starts with one, potential outburst in a classroom by a child who might be suffering from food insecurity or housing insecurity or any level of insecurity. And it's really those pieces and those times where we're called upon to help them. So we are all human, really trying to keep the humanity in what we're talking about. And human to human, peer to peer, people give to people don't give to causes or organizations. Yeah. So I really think bringing that down to something so simple The KISS method does apply when you're trying to get funding, right? But really what you want to do is make a relationship. You make one relationship, like I said, to educate someone who wants to give you money or wants to invest. I like to say invest, rather than, throw money at a problem, which, a lot of people tend to think that is an answer. But I think there's a lot to be said for the education of donors, of funders, of investors. I mean, everybody spends so much time on the for-profit side of, venture capitalists. It's like, I would love to have a group of VCs and angel investors and donors in an organization like ours, right? And I think every donor is somewhat of an angel to us, especially in really tough times like these. But I think really making that single human connection with somebody and being able to tell them the story of your agency and what you're really doing, and the impact of your work is really where it's at. And I think that human connection has gotten lost the more that we've been able to kind of distance ourselves from those one-on-ones. So I think bring back those lunches, bring back those donor friend raisers, could be important.
As you mentioned, I think there's almost like low-hanging fruits that people forget about, right? We're so busy trying to do fundraisers. You mentioned gala, which is so funny because we're celebrating 30 years.
That's
So I
awesome.
said, what a perfect time to do a gala. Like, a gala hasn't been done either for this foundation, but I also looked at it as a relaunch for us because we
Mhm,
are going through a whole rebranding
mhm,
stage for us. So 30 years rebranding gala because we're working with alumni, right? It's a
mhm,
foundation for the school.
mhm,
What a perfect time to get alumni to get together, get dressed. We all love to get
mhm,
dressed. We all love to
mhm.
have a little cocktail, less separation from the kids at times.
Right.
So I thought it was a perfect time to do something because it hasn't been done, but it allows us to be really connecting with people, right? It's not just so much a gala, but allows us to have fun, to share the message, share what we've been doing, launch some of these campaigns that we've been talking about. But I do believe there's a lot of low hanging fruit, as you mentioned, is get into these rooms and start talking to people.
Mhm,
Create the rooms if needed, right? Maybe partner up with other foundations
mhm.
that could, are kind of doing similar things in the community. Because I think that's another thing that we're missing is people think collaboration in the nonprofit space doesn't exist.
Mhm.
But why? Why is it not existing? Especially when there's two different organizations doing similar things or things that could really help one another. Are you in agreement that we should be partnering up as nonprofits, not so much coming together as acquiring one another, but just at least helping each other, ideas, events?
Yeah, really, really fortunate in my work. I do a lot of our grant writing, a lot of our funding proposals, and it is more of a time to have letters of support, right? Your MOUs with other organizations, and I mean, I have been there for almost 8 years, but there were 92, 93 years that preceded me. So our organization has been based in Camden, New Jersey for over 100 years, and a lot of those relationships and partnerships continue to be cultivated still today. We're growing. We're responding to the inquiries of funders. How can we make this dollar go farther? But
Hmm.
really, even more than that, is how are we learning from each other? We have a lot of programs. We have a lot of clusters of areas of services that we work in, but we're not the end all be all. We're not everything to everyone. So in seeing where we could really add capacity in terms of what we're doing, we're inviting other partners to the table. You have to. You don't have funders at one table and partners at another table. Everybody should be there together, because when you can show that you are not in a silo and that you want to bring up and foster other organizations too, whether they're smaller, whether they're similar size. We can all learn from each other. We are also so blessed to be surrounded by meds and eds. We have a great card at Rutgers University, Rowan University, Cooper, Virtua, really big hospitals here in the South Jersey area. And, learning from them and also being able to say, hey, you want to get into this community. We have really great community relationships. If you want folks to get screened, right, for cancer screenings, for any sort of thing, diabetes screening, things that we know are also occurring challenges for
Yeah.
youth and adults in Camden. Come with us. We'll make some introductions to some really great community leaders for you. And on the flip side, tell us what we can do for you, what you can do for us. So really leveraging our expertise, expanding the toolbox that we have, is really something that is a great part of my job, being able to highlight that to funders. And then there's another introduction. So somebody who gave to one organization is like, oh, I've heard of them, but tell me what they do. Tell me how you're working with them. Tell me how they're helping your work get better and more, pushed out into the community. So I think we do that pretty well. Sometimes it's hidden in a, federal proposal or, a community foundation proposal. But I think, we could all do a better job of tooting our own horn and kind of, highlighting those partnerships for sure. But I think we're doing a really great job of that. I think we can do a better job promoting it. But I don't know that we would have had as much success securing some of our funding without the help of our partners.
If the Heart and Hustle podcast has ever sparked any idea or made you think differently, do us a favor. Make sure to guys share this, post it on LinkedIn, or even text that nonprofit friend that you just have. Whatever works, this is what keeps the conversation going and allows us to just grow this community together. Seriously, we appreciate you. You mentioned expanding your toolbox. It automatically leads me, because I say this all the time, automatically leads me to AI, because that is my new tool that expanded my toolbox. Allows me to be, I think, so much more creative, gives me a lot of time to focus on the things that matter. Where are you guys at with AI? I mean, 100 years, there's has to be something that allowed you guys to grow, and it probably is staying ahead of the curve. Is AI also something that you guys are kind of staying ahead of the curve with?
I would say that AI can be a challenge when you're talking about human social services, when you're talking about, clinical work, when you're talking about counseling, things like that. So we are looking at AI from a very cautious lens, I think. I think there are some organizations and some sectors who can dive right in and take it and, take the extra 10 minutes to have another cup of coffee because AI is helping you do your job today. I love that for everyone who can do that successfully. But I think, we have a lot of regulations and a lot of privacy concerns and considerations when it comes to that. So I think we are taking, some cautious steps in determining how that will work in our sector. I think we're taking a lot of, guidance from some of the other associations and, folks that we look to for some of that guidance when we're just not too sure of where to step. So I think treading lightly with AI generally is probably also a good idea. I think, there are some early adopters of that who know what to do with it. And even if they don't, they can at least share the best practices and lessons learned when it doesn't work out so well. But I think that, it's a TBD. It's an in progress.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think AI, I hear it in different spaces, right? How do we communicate? How do we help internally? How do we help externally? There's so many ways that AI can help, but what is that model that really helps us, I think, communicate really with our community, communicate with our donors. I think those are the important parts as well, is how do we stay relevant? Because out of sight, out of mind. So how are we getting people on their phones, right? Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But one of the things that was really fascinating is that you love to add humor. You like to lead with humor. Why do you think laughter belongs in the middle of a trauma-informed care and fundraising meetings?
So maybe not so much in trauma-informed care, but I think for me, I find humor disarming. I find it can be level setting. I find that for me, it's also something making a friend laugh, bringing some humor to, we didn't get this and we didn't, it didn't go so well. Something didn't go in our favor, or, we're growing too fast. We need to find more space. And, you're cracking a joke about, something and, the old woman who lived in a shoe didn't know what to, it's too much stuff going on. I just find it, whether it's corny or cringy or whatever my kids would say, or whatever my, 1990s self would say, I just find that rooms shouldn't be so stuffy and shouldn't be so serious, because when we start taking ourselves too seriously, the work gets heavier. So I think finding a little levity in things. Growing up, my grandma had Reader's Digest in her house. And the back of it was laughter was the best medicine. I used to read it and literally laugh my head off because I thought I was like old senior citizen humor maybe at the time. Who knows? But I giggled, and I've always had laughter around me. I think my kids are some of the funniest people, and probably just because I'm biased, I love them.
Right.
But I love people. I love to laugh. I love people who can make me laugh, and then in turn, I just feel like I think you burn calories. At least I tell myself. But I think smiling can burn calories, but it also it just lightens the room. And if you can't laugh at yourself, you really shouldn't be laughing at anybody else.
I do agree. I'm a total clown. Like, and my daughter is definitely following in my footsteps, and I tell her all the time, please don't lose your humor. However, she does it in the wrong times. You know how it is, right? The kids
Absolutely.
sometimes just take it overboard a little bit. But no, it is true. I was a facilitator, and I was always I depending on what facilitators I work with, it just made life so much easier. It made work so much easier because we were laughing together. It never felt like work. We're having a good time. Even for those that were taking those classes, like they'll love it because we're laughing. I'll tell stories, right? We talk about stories. Sometimes there's those stories that really tug at the heart, but there's also those funny stories. And I'm a type of person. I'll act it out, right? That's like my background is theater, so I'm acting it out. So I hear you. You got to, right? And times of work when it comes to nonprofit, sometimes it's so hard. But how do you continue to just get people laughing, excited to come back, to continue to do it over and over? Because I sat in board meetings, and I'm pretty sure you have that. It's like, oh my God, why am I here? Right? So you bring the energy, and it is hard because people think that it's I guess it's hard and easy at the same time because for me, I feel like when people say you, your job is easy, you just talk to people. I'm like, I gotta turn that on. You think I want to do this all day, every day? Sometimes I also want to be quiet and just sit there, but you realize that you are the energy in the room at times. You are what keeps it moving, and your seat, you are what keeps it moving, right? So you got to make sure you balance both of them, which I love. I love that a leader like yourself is saying, listen, it's okay to have fun when we get down to business, we get down to business. But we're just having a little bit of humor. I love it. I love it. I also love that you guys have been hiring residents to do the work. Bold move. What kind of magic happens when you get people in the story to actually help write that next chapter? Right? Really, that's what it is. Like, whose idea was it? Like, was this always a thing? Did something that you implemented, or I think it's fascinating.
So yes, yes, and it is fascinating. It is going back to that authentic storytelling because you can't get it wrong when you've got a resident behind you,
Hmm.
beside you, when you're following them through the streets, knocking on doors, as you mentioned. Um, I think there are a lot of organizations like ours in Camden who do lean on the lived experience of Camden residents. There are Camden residents I was with last night who have lived there for 40, 45 years, who have been
Wow.
there since the jump with their families, who, are multiple generations of families from Camden.
Hmm.
And you're never going to get a more authentic story than from a Camden resident. When you want to do something and start a new initiative and you try to do a focus group or you know, oh, we're going to try this. And, you get, okay, that's great. And you're like, what am I doing wrong? You're like, no, 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 not doing anything. We can't wait to see it happen. It's like, well, is it because it hasn't happened? It hasn't happened well enough. It has, tell me more. And they're like, we'll tell you more. You just keep coming back to us with some updates. You just keep coming back to us you don't forget about us. And when you have Camden residents on your team, they hear it. They have to go, back home every day wearing the t-shirt or doing, and they will hear it and they will bring it back. And they're like, they're really excited about our event. We're going to need more, more ice cream, a second Mr. Softee truck, whatever it is. Or, this isn't reading well out there. We need to do more outreach. We need to be out in front a little bit more. We need to change the message. We've even had feedback of changing the title of a workshop because no one was coming. And as soon as we did, we had 30 people at the door. Like very simple feedback, very simple, but it's honest and it's authentic and it works and it's true. And so and it's not that it's a low bar or a low requirement. It's a requirement that meets people where they are to work with us. And we've had so many Camden residents. I have a woman on my team who has been with us for 9 years. She was with us before she joined my team. As a neighborhood, we have neighborhood allies. Some organizations have community health workers. So you're sharing healthcare information and resources as a member who goes back home, and you're using them yourself, right? No better proof in the pudding than someone who's, also using the product, right?
Yeah.
That old guy who used to say, I'm not only the president, but I'm also a member, right? So that's the thing for our Camden residents. And they are at every table with us when we're making decisions, when we're designing programs. That feedback is invaluable. That asset that we have, when we're asset mapping, the first thing we put down is Camden residents. That's the biggest, truest, most authentic asset that we have. And when we abandon that, we're sunk, because it's with them and by them, and then it's for them. So when we're doing it in collaboration, going back to your other point, who are we collaborating with? First and foremost, it has to be the residents, because when we're long gone, they're the ones who, we're accountable to getting the funding and doing the thing. But if we're not sharing that experience and sharing that toolbox and building up their repertoire of what they have in their pocket to make, these initiatives continue and sustain in a way that makes sense for them, that makes them feel safe and comfortable and secure, then, that trust building is proof that we're doing it right, because they're keeping us honest. And that's one of the best things experiences that I've had in my job, is by working side by side with Camden residents. It's awesome.
Yeah, and make complete sense, right? Like those are the ones that you said going to use it. Those are the ones that experience it, and it's like really, it's not about us; it's about them. So why not get them involved, right? I think sometimes organizations may get that wrong as well. It's trying to do things as that you just want to do, but is it really helpful? As you mentioned, is someone going to use it? Is the title that we grab them with the title? Because sometimes we got to dumb it down a little bit, right? To just make sense, and not so much because people are not smart, but sometimes we just need it to make sense. I'm a big believer. Every time, even with my partner Keenan, I always say whenever we're saying something, it just has to make sense. When I was a facilitator, like they'll give me a script, like this is what you teach, but I'm like, it doesn't make sense. We got to speak your language, right? So how do we speak their language? We get to know what they do. We get to know who they are. And once you understand that, now you can speak their language. Like I spoke to these people. They're here. They're speaking up. So I love that you guys get so involved in that. It shows why there's 100-year-old, nonprofit standing because of those reasons. We think about burnout though, right? I can imagine it happens often. You're working so hard, you burn yourself out. How are you leading others when maybe sometimes your own tank is actually running low? Like, is there someone else that you go to kind of refill that up? Is it husband? Is it kids? Is it God? What is it?
Um, I think that um, turning a certain age can also kind of change that. I used to hear legendary tales that once you hit, let's say 40, for example, things that you not invested too much time in that maybe
Hmm.
didn't deserve a lot of your time. Um, you start to realize that maybe you want to readjust where you spend your time and who you spend your time with.
Hmm.
So I think being able to say no, being able to say no, thank you, being able to decide, again, comfortable and happy. How do I stay comfortable and happy, right? If was uncomfortable today, how do I get back to my comfortable space? If I was, less than satisfied with the day, how do I get back to happy? And now both of those things aren't always simultaneous, right? But how do I get back to one? How do I get back to
Hmm.
baseline? So for me, that could be, going to a youth sports game to be with people who I don't have to talk about the day today, right? We don't even actually always ask how your day was, right? Because here we are, we're doing this thing now. Like, let's be present here. So I think that's the other thing is people who help me be present where I am, or who see my face, which I am very, very bad poker face. So people will be like, and mostly my husband, thank him for his truth. But I think that There are your people that you go to. I wish I had more time to exercise, but I watch other people exercise, my kids all the time. So I think it's being back with the people who know you best
Bring you
and
happiness.
who can keep you grounded.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you say sports game. I'm a wrestling fan, so I tell people's like, should I go by myself? I'm like, yeah. Like, it doesn't matter if you go by yourself because everybody in there is loving the same
Yeah,
damn
yeah.
thing. Like, I remember going to WrestleMania one time, 40, 50,000 people in
Mhm.
this place. I never felt out of place. I was there by myself. It was a last minute thing,
No, yeah.
but everyone loves wrestling here. So guess what? I'm yelling to this person like, "Oh my God, let me say
You're
that!"
right,
Like,
right, right. It's a shared
not even
experience.
worrying about what's happening on the outside world because I'm so happy. Like to me, I always say it, wrestling is like the escape of reality for me, at times because life be lifing,
Mhm.
and sometimes you need to find that thing. I love how you mentioned 40 years old. I'm halfway there. Okay, I'm 35, but I also feel that I'm taking that in, scaling, my personal brand and what I've been doing.
Mhm.
I realize that some of the friends that I were talking to maybe once a week, I'm talking to them once every 3 months
Mhm.
you know, because sometimes the things they say, right, we just don't have time for it. As you mentioned, I don't have time. I'm a parent now. I'm a leader. Like, not that we change, but we have to realize what we're intaking, kind of what you mentioned, right? What
Mhm.
are you intaking? And to me, that was the music I was listening to, the way I was talking to myself, the way I allowed others to talk to me,
Mhm.
right? Or just kind of speak on my life. So I hear you. Those all they do make a difference when
Mhm.
you just think in that way. So I love that you mentioned that, and it kind of scares me when you said 40. I'm like, wait, I'm almost there. Life changes again. It's already changing. My knees are cracking, and oh, this is crazy.
You'll be
I
great
was
when
doing
you
the
get
floors.
there. You'll be great
I
when you
was
get
doing the floors the other day, right, Megan, and I felt it completely the next for like 2 days. The knees, the back, all this. I'm like, oh, this is what they say when you get a little older. So luckily, I still work out. It wasn't too long of a hurt. But I hear everything that you're saying. I'm resonating over here, making me feel old. Thank you, Megan. I
there.
appreciate it. I love it. You don't believe in best practices, right? You believe in belonging. What does that actually look like in a system though that's built on metrics?
Um, so we have a lot of metrics. We have a lot of funding metrics, levels of service. So there are the real measures and the real outcomes to what we do for sure every day. A lot of people to report to, a lot of people to show that we're doing the thing that they entrusted us to do, and that we are helping the people they entrusted us to help. Um, but I think from my role, it's the people, places, and things.
Hmm.
So the people are the ones doing it. They are our frontline staff. They are the leaders in their field. They are the experts of their work. They are supervisors to field staff. They are going into homes and they are counseling families and children in schools. They are trying to interrupt, violence in unsafe communities. They are trying to educate the youngest, brightest faces in our Head Start classrooms. Um, a lot of the work that we do is, again, it's numbers, it's case notes, it's uh, client assistance, it's helping people, meeting them where they are, but it's not head counting. Again, it goes back to every single individual has a unique story, has a unique situation that brought them to our door, brought them to our access line, to get in touch with us for some reason because they need help. Do they know that it's us who's going to be able to help them? That's the trust that we build, right? That's the authentic
Hmm.
service delivery that we offer. But um, it's everyone's role to to believe and to deliver on the mission of our agency, which is to make people and communities stronger. And that's up to people to decide what that means. And we are there to
Yeah.
support them in whatever that definition looks like, for however long we can and however long that works in collaboration with each other. I want my team to know that they are supported, that they are, smart and capable, and have mostly every day taught me something about how to do my job better or how to even live as a human better, how to make relationships stronger. and definitely less transactional. And just really caring and having compassion and empathy for people is something that the 1,700 folks that work for our agency do every day. Certainly lucky to be in their presence and tell the stories of the work that we do, and really make sure that any investment that any one organization, person, company wants to provide to our agency is used with the stewardship in mind of their intention, but with the efficiency and effectiveness that we have to utilize those dollars and that funding.
You mentioned 1,700 people. That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. We are a statewide organization at this point. We stretch from one end of New Jersey to the other.
Wow.
Not certainly in every county, but it's a lot of well-intentioned people who do very, very hard work. I mean, we're not ER doctors, we're not trauma doctors, but we do a lot of the work that people wouldn't really step foot in, and it's meaningful and it's tough, but it's really great.
Oh, it is. And I think that's why I like to share this because people don't realize what's really going on, right, inside some of these nonprofits until they join in. But for someone that's who's actually listening, who's never volunteered, never donated, never advocated, what's that first small act that they can actually take that would matter?
Sure. Well, the political landscape in our country has really brought a lot of issues to light. Issues that might have impacted smaller communities or on a smaller scale because they're not as promoted or talked about or highlighted, either in the news or just in common discourse. So a lot of the issues that are being raised or defunded, or issues that are kind of coming up around the continuation of just basic needs and support for those. Those are things that you can get up and advocate for just by saying, I care about this because it either has affected me, it's affected my neighbor. One day it could affect any of us. Any of us are one horrible, accident or challenge away from losing a job. Right? We've seen, federal workers and government workers lose their jobs. It's a really tough time, and I think it's really just finding out what's important to yourself, to your family, and seeking out opportunities to just learn about organizations or ways that those burdens or barriers are trying to be lifted for folks in your own town, and then you can work your way up from there. There's always an organization that's distributing food near you. There's always an organization that is offering tutoring help to kids. There's always an organization that needs mentors for youth. It's huge. You show up for somebody because guess what? In your life, somebody had to have shown up for you to get you where you are. So if you can show up and give an hour of your time, then from that, maybe you want to give $100 with an hour of your time, or increase it to 2 hours, or bring a friend. Do it as a buddy system. If you're not going to go to the gym with your friend, they're going to be like, are we going today? Are we going today? Why don't you reallocate your time and invest it in helping someone else? If you know that you're not going to get on that rowing machine or you're not going to get on that elliptical, go help somebody else. If you're good, if you're set, if you're not worried about something today, go help somebody else who might be worried about something today.
Yeah. I love that you say that because it is true. There's an organization for everybody. What do you love? I can imagine if you Google that nonprofit, that it would actually show up.
Sure.
And as you mentioned, it gives you the time to sometimes realize pouring into others, it's what you need, right? Brings happiness. Maybe we're not in a happy place. What brings us happiness? Sometimes it's seeing someone else happy, right? So it giving someone that happiness because you can. Because at one point, as you mentioned, I always look at it, and I think that's why I've been so into wanting to give back. I'm adopted, so to me that was a second chance at life. And from early on in my life, I just wanted to help somebody else. Even though I was going through all this, things in my life, sexual abuse and adoption, feeling unloved, I still had this, man, I just want to give back because I looked at it as someone gave me, and I think there was opportunities when we were in high school, middle school, elementary, out in the world or someone gave to you.
Mhm.
So let's continue to pass it on and make this world a better place, because ideally those small little things that we do truly do make a difference. I was actually just talking to my neighbor yesterday, and unfortunately, he likes to pay for everyone. But unfortunately, this lady that's behind him, she almost felt like he was flirting in a sense, right? And
Mhm.
he's like, because he's a veteran, he was getting his stuff free, so he just decided to pay for the next one, behind. So whatever, it was a whole kind of show. The lady says, "Hey," the actual cashier is like, "Man, I never seen that done. Like, don't lose yourself because of
Mhm.
one person,
Mhm.
right?" So the next day, he did it again. The lady behind him was in tears
Mhm.
and gave him a hug and says, "No one's ever done something nice for me."
Mhm.
Like, it's something like that, right? That little token of appreciation makes a huge difference.
Mhm.
And maybe now she felt seen. Now she will continue to pass on, realizing, oh my God, this whole time I thought there wasn't good people in this world. But look at that. It truly does make a difference when we just show up and volunteer our time. So I'm
Mhm.
happy that you kind of went down that lane of, there's plenty of things that could be done. It's not always just
Mhm.
donating, right? Just
Yeah.
finding the time to give back. We're kind of at the end of it. I told you it was gonna just run by so
Mhm.
fast, and now I'm gonna put you in the hot seat. It's the blind question time. So, Megan, I ask you, what truth about leadership did you once whisper to yourself, but now you're like shouting it to everybody?
Leadership is learning. Leadership is not having to be the smartest person in the room. When you
Hmm.
spend a lot of time going through school and trying to get straight A's or trying to, be the achiever, whether it's, the tremendous amount of pressure you put on yourself, asking for a friend, or it's, what you feel like you need to become, or external pressures, whatever it is, pressure to get out of wherever you are, or
Yep.
pressure to, to change the way that people think about you. Whatever that pressure, of that came with learning before to get to wherever it is you are or are striving to be. That learning can feel heavy, and I think some of us think that you can stop learning because now you're leading. So you learned enough
Hmm.
to lead. And the thing is that you've never learned enough, that you need to still learn along with the people that are working with you or walking with you or doing the work with you. That's why there's conferences and continuing education credits, right? Like you've got
Yep.
to continue learning. And I think fostering that, um, you can be an expert today, but something's going to challenge you tomorrow that you might not know the answer to, and maybe AI can give it to you quicker than I can. I was a fan of Encyclopedia Britannica. So soon as I like a book, I love the feel of a book still. They took the newspaper away from me, but one day, I think it's that you can't shortchange yourself, as a leader. And I always thought, well, I don't know enough to be a leader. And I was like, that's exactly how you get into that seat sometimes, right?
Hmm.
And you have to be able to foster that in other people and learn along with them. And sure, you can still teach, people things about, your lessons learned and your best practices through life. But I think being able to keep a fire of knowing that you don't know everything is something to be
Yep.
said for leaders.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Every leader is not the smartest person in the room. A good leader is probably not the smartest
Mm-hmm.
person in the room,
Yep.
right? They found good people around them that make them look good,
Mm-hmm.
but in reality, it's those that they're pouring into and also kind of pouring up. Just because you mentioned encyclopedia, it took me to a story, a video that I was watching yesterday, and she was talking about a pager.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like 25 years old. He's like, I mean, I've seen it in movies, but what exactly is that, right? And so she's describing a pager. For me, I'm like, you really don't know what a pager is, right? But he did not know. He's like, oh, I learned something new today. So look at that. People are still
See?
learning something new about a pager, something that's been,
Mm-hmm.
well, it's not around anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but it was around. It's crazy to think that people don't know what a pager is, though, isn't it, Megan?
It's now
Golly.
now that the things I grew up with are now vintage. I feel a certain type of way about it, but it's okay.
Yeah. I think this is so funny, but I still have a floppy disk. Like, it was a project that I did years ago, and I would love to know what's on this floppy disk.
Uh-huh.
But right,
Yeah,
those don't really exist. Who
it's
the hell is carrying
frozen.
around a floppy
It's
disk?
it's frozen in time. You're never gonna know. It's like
We barely
VHS tape.
grab we We barely even use USB drives. Remember when that was a thing? You had all these USB drives
Mhm.
for what? Everything is
Mhm.
just on the computer
Yeah.
technology. So that's why we got to continue to learn as well, right? Things
Mhm.
are ever changing in front of us. Social media, the website, AI now is that new thing that everyone's still learning, but not everyone has ever used it. I was actually surprised. I was talking to my mechanic, and he was going through some issues. So I put everything in ChatGPT. So I took it, I prompted it, and it made me feel good because he was very dead on
Mhm.
what he was saying. Right? ChatGPT told me he was dead on, but he's like, I never used it. Is it free? I'm like, you don't use ChatGPT, but that's because it's still kind of new to us.
Mhm.
One day, everyone's using ChatGPT. Forget a Google search.
Mhm.
So yeah. Anyway, let's not make us feel too old here, Megan. Let's not make us feel too old. What is your blind question to our next leader?
Well, my blind question is, what is the gift or talent you have that you wish you could highlight more often, or be able to demonstrate more often, either at work or at home? Just something that you know you can do, but just never have the right platform for
Love
it.
it,
The
love it.
hidden
That's
talent
always
or gift.
intriguing. Yeah, that's intriguing. That's intriguing to figure out from a leader because we just play these roles of leaders and forget who we are sometime on the outside. So make people think. I love what you're thinking. Get into the mindset right there.
Mhm.
Well, Megan, I truly appreciate your time. It's always been an honor to speak to another leader like yourself that is 100-year-old organization, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot to really learn from this organization. Has been around for so long. We thank you so much for giving us your time. Guys, if you guys still watching, make sure that you guys do like, comment, and share. That's the way that we continue to share the stories, right? We are storytellers. We want people to understand the nonprofit world is a beautiful place to be in. Yes, of course, there's always some challenges, but the happiness, the comfortability, right? Megan is telling us she's happy and she's comfortable, and realizing that when you go home, it's not about the money, it's about the purpose, it's about the passion, the mission that you truly live. So if you guys are interested in nonprofits, Camden is one of those. Not Camden because you're not in Camden, but there's so many nonprofits like this one in Camden. So if you guys are in Jersey, make sure you guys check them out, guys. We thank you. Matter of fact, before I let go, what social media are you guys on? Social media, what is the website before we actually?
Yeah, so our agency is Center for Family Services. We are centerffs.org. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. That's our website. And we love the feedback. We just got an award for the accessibility of our website. So that's something that we got ahead of, right? But it is user friendly, it is easy to navigate, and it's easy to find help.
I love it. Guys, you guys heard it here first. My name's Ephraim. This has been Megan. You guys take care. See
Thanks.
you guys on the next one.